Millions of people across 6 continents, including 1 in 25 Americans, have reported a near-death experience. John Burke is one of the foremost experts in the world on near-death experiences. He is the New York Times best-selling author of Imagine Heaven, and his latest blockbuster, Imagine the God of Heaven. For 30-plus years, John has researched thousands of these accounts and reports and says they are strikingly similar, yet breathtakingly unique to each person.
They commonly say they were in a world more real than this world, and all over the globe they see the same God of light, who consistently, they say, this God is love, and what matters most to this God is how we love and treat one another. And they would say nothing at all could compare to just being in the presence of God. That God is actually the love you have always wanted.
Fascinating. And John Burke is here with us now. So good to have you here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
How did you get involved in this? 2 big books writing about this. How did
Well,
God...
it's actually the story of how I came to faith. My dad was dying of cancer. I've always been... I studied engineering and I worked as an engineer, so I'm very analytical. So I always wanted to know, well, how do you know this is true, this whole God, Jesus stuff? I didn't believe. But my dad was dying of cancer, and someone gave him the very first research on near-death experiences. When people clinically die, you know, they have no heartbeat, no brain waves, and yet they say they're in this world more real than this world. And I read it in one night, and my thought was, oh my goodness, this could be actual evidence that this God stuff is real. And that began my 35-year journey of studying over 1,000 of them. I went from engineering to become a pastor in the meantime. and so my question was always like, how do the commonalities of what these are saying align with the scriptures?
Talk about that. What are the commonalities? I mean, there are many of them, so give us an overview of that.
Well, I mean, people say they leave their bodies, but they still have a spiritual body, just like Paul talked about.
Things that are going on.
And that's what convinced me is initially they're still in the room watching their resuscitation, and when they come back, they're able to verify. People were able to verify in studies that they actually saw something they should not have seen. And that convinced not only me, but many skeptical medical doctors as well.
Talk, if you will, about the fact that, you know, people, this experience happens to all kinds of people, people from different cultures, people from different spiritual backgrounds. How does that impact any of the commonality or their story?
Well, it's the same. I mean, different people have different depths of experience, but the commonalities are the same all around the globe, of traveling often after that to a place of exquisite beauty. In some cases, a hellish experience. Those are real too. In the presence of this God of light and love, who many of them know to be Jesus. Some of them, even though they weren't expecting Jesus, that's who they know they are seeing. And he gives them a life review often. They meet their deceased relatives. In some cases, they meet relatives they hadn't known and could come back and describe them.
They know who they are when they see them.
They know.
It's so strange, isn't it?
And it is the life that we long for. But they also say, and that's why I wrote Imagine the God of Heaven, is because one of the commonalities they said is that of all the beauty, of all the incredible reunions, nothing could compare to being in the presence of God. That he is the one who knows you best, who loves you most, who gets you. And in Imagine the God of Heaven, I'm trying to expand our box that we all have to, we all put God in a box because we're finite. But he's far more mysterious and beautiful and powerful and sovereign, but also far more relatable.
Loving.
Loving. He gets us. He's been with us through it all.
So do people actually have that life review that you hear some people talk about? Talk about that.
So in the presence of God, many times people relive their lives. So they say exactly what 2 Peter 3:8 says, that to the Lord a 1,000 years like a day and a day is like 1,000 years. And they say time didn't work the same way. And I talk about that in the book. But they re-experience their lives from the perspective, from God's perspective. They see themselves interacting with every person. And they not only remember what they were thinking and feeling, they see what the other was thinking and feeling. And God shows them the ripple effect of every little action. You know, he said that to love God first and then to love one another sums up the whole Bible, all the commands.
Wow.
And that is exactly what people come back saying, that God is love, and what matters most is how we treat one another. And they see the ripple effect of that.
You know, science, like engineering, very fact-related. And a lot of medical people would say, well, when the body's under severe stress or trauma, that it produces endorphins and that's why people are having this experience. They kind of explain away from a scientific standpoint. How have you seen scientific medical people respond to this?
Well, I know doctors, and you know, in chapter 2 of Imagine the God of Heaven, I put the 10 points of evidence that convince me and many skeptical medical doctors. A good friend of mine, Dr. Jeffrey Long, who is an oncologist, he's studied thousands of them as well. And he believes, and as I do, that this is scientific evidence for the existence of an afterlife. Because, you know, science, the most basic scientific principle is what is consistently observed is real.
Yes.
and here you have millions. That's the other thing. There are millions of cases.
Not a few.
Not a few, all over the globe. Millions. Consistent, blind people, when they clinically die, have the same experience. And they see the same things. They see light coming out of everything in heaven. Well, that's exactly what it says in Revelation 21 and Isaiah 60, that there is no sun or moon. The glory of God is its light, and the nations will walk in that light.
Not everybody, I'm sure, has a good experience when they die. What about people who've had hell experiences? What's that been like?
Well, it is just as real, and many of them tell me they have PTSD from it.
Yeah.
But interestingly, I know 4 pastors who had hellish experiences and came back, and it was such a motivation to seek God that they have been telling everybody. And they say not to avoid hell, but because they saw that hell is the rejection of God. Yeah. And God is what you want. He's who you want. Yeah. You know, in Jeremiah 3, God uses every relational metaphor that we have to explain the love he has for us. It's greater than any love.
It's a powerful, powerful message. Listen, we all need to hear this, because what's the old saying? They say none of us is getting out of here alive. So, you know, you can know more about where you're going. You can learn more about near-death experiences in John's brand new book. It's called Imagine the God of Heaven. Such an affirmation to the God that we love and receive. And it's in stores nationwide. John, thank you for being with us today. What a wonderful book.
Well, thank you so much.
We're going to be back with more of the 700 Club right after this.